Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the Seaman, and I want to welcome you to another edition of the Seaman's Cinema Sit-Down. I guess today is just going to be a day about talking about badass women in Netflix action-oriented things, man. We just talked about Charlize Theron, Kiki Lane in The Old Guard. You can see that review right here. But if you haven't seen The Old Guard and you want to get yourself in the mood to see The Old Guard, this show right here is what I watched right before, and man, did it put me in the mood for the type and the setting type of the type of action that we get in The Old Guard. And this was a show that I had a lot of fun with, man. I simply clicked on it because of the name. There wasn't necessarily anybody in the show that I was like, ooh, I want to watch the show because of this person. But when I saw the title of the show, I was like, I can't not click on this. And for the most part, you eventually get to what you would expect out of a show with a title like this one. It does a lot of building, much like The Old Guard does. But I think what it's setting up and what it gets to, it really finds its groove right at the back half of the season. And where it's going, I was like, yeah, I'm here for all of this stuff. What am I talking about? Why don't you pull up a chair, man? Take a seat. We getting ready to dive in spoiler-free into season 1 of Netflix's Warrior Nun. Yes, I clicked on this show because the title was Warrior Nun, and I was like, wait a minute. Someone made a show about warriors or about a show about nuns who are warriors? Ass-kicking nuns? Let's go. I'm totally here for that. And I didn't know anything about it. Had no clue what it was about. Turns out, based on a comic book. As is most media these days, which just makes me happy. I gotta go track down these comics now too and kind of take a look at them. I think the comic book is set or takes place with characters that come before the show. I could be wrong. Like I said, I haven't read it, but I think the one character that is mentioned a bunch in the show that's from back in the day, I believe, is the main character in the book. I could be wrong, but I think it was called Warrior Nun Aurelia. I think that's the name of the actual graphic novel, and like the first warrior nun's name is Aurelia in the show. So I think that's what the book's about. Regardless, another piece of media that's based off of comics. I love it even more right out the gate. What can I say about the Warrior Nun? It's a fun show. It takes a little bit to get its footing and really find what it wants to be. And I think most of that is because it had a lot of world building and setup to do, because most people probably aren't familiar with the material. I mean, I'm a comic book guy, and I'm not familiar with the comic material. And it's the story of the Warrior Nun and where they come from and how they came to be is rich. Like when you see that all play out throughout the course of the season, you're like, oh man, like that's a really interesting story. I understand why you had to set this stuff up. However, like most Netflix shows, this is pretty formulaic to what Netflix likes to do. So if you like watching Netflix shows, you're gonna be in a lot of the same places as far as like the way it flows, how it's paced, the type of action we get. It hits all those beats of what Netflix shows do. The biggest problem with the Netflix formula is the Netflix formula almost always is 2 episodes too long. Warrior Nun, I would argue, is like 3 episodes too long. And let me set it up here for you. So there is a sect of nuns in the church that are led by the Warrior Nun. The Warrior Nun was dying in battle and was granted a halo by an angel. And the halo put into her back, or it might have been into her stomach. But however, it's inserted into her, and it healed her, saved her life, and then gave her superpowers. And from that point on, she leads this group of other warrior-type nuns who don't have superpowers. They're just regular nuns who can kick ass. And, you stop, villainy and devil-type demon action. And there are. The warrior nun can see these different kinds of demons, and they go about and fight them. And over the course of the years, the halo doesn't make you immortal. You can die. And when you die, the halo is passed on. So for this show, our Warrior Nun, spoilers, just a mild spoiler so I can set up what the base of the idea of the show is, gets mortally wounded in battle, but the battle gets taken back to their church lair location. Because of that, the halo is in jeopardy. So the nurse takes the halo out and just sticks it into a corpse that that got to the church earlier on in the day. Turns out that corpse was a quadriplegic girl named Ava. She was in a car accident as a child, couldn't move from the neck down, was put into an orphanage that's run by nuns, and then right near when she has to leave is when she dies. She's at the age of where she has to kind of transfer out of that orphanage, and she dies. Ends up at this church. They put the halo inside of her to store it for safekeeping, not knowing that the halo, if connected, it can reject its host. It kind of has to be accepted. Isn't only accepted into Ava, it brings her back to life and gives her full powers. And that's where some of the problems with this show come from. Now, Ava is played by Alba Baptista. Alba Baptista is the best part of this show. She is absolutely phenomenal. She's so much fun to watch. You absolutely adore her character. And like I said, she's a quadriplegic who all of a sudden now has superpowers and can walk and run. So you get to live a lot of firsts for her. Because she was a little kid last time she had any kind of movement whatsoever. So walking on a beach, meeting a boy, just interacting with people where you can walk, going to a club, dancing, all these things get thrown at, obviously get thrown at Alba Baptista to do as Ava, and she nails that stuff. When she is experiencing things for the first time, it's always one of my favorite things. And when an actor can genuinely give you an expression or a delivery of something that happened for the first time, and it feels genuine, it's the most impressive thing for me. Because it's hard to recreate the feeling of doing something for the first time, specifically something like walking if you've walked your entire life. And Baptista crushes that stuff. Her facial expressions in the show are great. Her personality, the arc of her character, like how her character thinks at the beginning to how her character thinks by the end, loved all of it. When she is on screen, the show is working, and at least you love what she is doing. The problem is there's like a 3-episode side tangent that involves a boy and this group of grifters that are kind of they're squatters that are kind of roaming around from really expensive mansion in Italy to the next place in Spain or wherever. When they find these houses are just empty for a long time, they move in, whatever. But you end up with this situation where Baptista finds them, and then she gets found by the nuns, and now she's doing the nun stuff. You're like, okay, now the show gets to get going, because we know that she's going to become the warrior nun. And she goes back and forth with whether or not to commit to it a bunch of times, and for me it was 1 or 2 times too many. And to spend 3 episodes on this love interest, who's played by Amelia Sacraia, JC, I didn't need it. I understand, from the storytelling and about the character, why it would make sense to go that route. But it ends up where, spoilers, JC has no impact on the second half of the show, and it ends up being this 2.5, 3-episode side tangent that doesn't really fulfill too much other than getting to watch Alba Baptista do things for the first time that you just kind of adore. It just wasn't that good in the group outside of... this one, I can't remember what her name was in the show. It was played by a transgendered actress, though. And she kind of has this connection with Ava that you like. Anytime they're on screen together, I was like, this is interesting. I'd be willing to see more of what's going on here than hanging out with this group and this love interest stuff. Because once you get that out of the way, and it's probably the end of episode 4, you get this really, really badass nun ass-kicking sequence with Sister Beatrice, played by Christina Tonteri Young, who's great. After Baptista, she's my favorite person in the show. They also have a really interesting relationship as Ava starts to become one of these warrior nuns. But when you get to the end of episode 4 and you see that action sequence that Tonteri Young has, you go, oh, this is what this show can be? Yes, give me more of this. And again, it takes a little time to get back to that type of stuff. But once you get to past episode 4 and 5 and you're in the back half of the season, it becomes about this group of nuns. And when that is on screen, this show is absolute fire. The Warrior Nun action is so much fun. The group of women is awesome. Like, I love this group. As we already mentioned, Alba Baptista, the outsider who's being brought in. She's absolutely tremendous. Christina Tonteri Young, who plays Sister Beatrice. Love her. Her story, where she comes from, why she's in the church, why she wanted to become a nun, why she does these things, and how she interacts with Ava. I just loved watching all of that stuff. Then you have Toya Turner, who plays Shotgun Mary. I was not a big fan of Shotgun Mary in the early episodes because I was like, oh, you're so obsessed with this one thing, and I know this one thing isn't going to really play into the ultimate part of the ultimate show. It's not going to play into that story a lot. And it's also kind of putting you at odds with the character that we absolutely love. Until you get an episode where Shotgun Mary and Ava are together for a stretch of time, and from there forward, you love Shotgun Mary, man. Toya Turner is so much fun. She is so freaking badass in this show. And again, the relationship that she has with Ava totally dictates how you feel about her. Because Ava is the thing you gravitate and latch onto for the show, because Alba Baptista is just tremendous. But Toya Turner, when she finally clicks in and like kind of starts to build her relationship with Ava, awesome, dude. And she kicks so much ass. I love it. Then you have Lorena Andrea, who plays Sister Lilith. She is kind of like the number 2. She's the next in line to become the Warrior Nun, and has had a mother and a sister who have been a Warrior Nun. So like she's next in line. So when Ava gets it, kind of creates a riff. And again, anytime you got a riff in between Ava and another character, you know, you're a little hesitant. You don't want to quite buy into this person. But her story is super interesting. What happens to her character, and then how that plays in the second half of the season. Really good stuff. And again, like, you really get in on Sister Lilith too by the time you get to the end of the season, because you're like, yeah, you just end up loving that group. And I felt Lorena Andrea did a really, really nice job. And then there is Sister Camilla, who is the last of our main group of nuns. We do see a couple other sisters throughout the show that pop in here or there, but Sister Camilla is the final of like our main group. She's played by Olivia Delcan. She's kind of like your tech support almost to a degree. She has moments throughout, it's very, very small, but every once in a while, man, she just like pops in and like says something or does something. And you're like, oh yes, that's exactly what I needed right now in that moment. So I enjoyed Sister Camilla, even though she's got a much smaller role than the other sisters. But together, that group, you just fall in love with them, and you don't really get to see them function as a group until the very, very end of the season. I think that's the biggest problem. Once this show figured out that the show needed to be about these like 5 women, fire. Everything from like the last 3-4 episodes, I was just like, yes, take my money, give me more. I can't wait for season 2. And that's because this group is just absolutely flat out fantastic. Now, of course, there are some other people throughout the show. You have Father Vincent, who's played by Tristan Ulloa. Really interesting character. All I'll say about him is he is a father with arm sleeves, man. He rolls up his sleeves at one point. He's got all these badass tattoos, and you're like, all right, Father Vincent, go get him. And also, his story arc is kind of interesting when you get into it. And again, like all these things you find interesting happen on the back half of the show. That like episode 1's really good, episode 4 is good. That 2, 3, and the first half of 4, I'm like, we could have moved a little bit faster through some of that stuff. But you do enjoy when Tristan Ulloa is on screen as the father in charge of this group. I really liked him, as well as his right-hand Mother Superior, who's played by Sylvia DeFanti. And what's cool is her story. Again, another interesting character. We only get tidbits of Mother Superior, and she's, again, you know, one of those real strict, like, hard-ass mothers who, you know, it really is hard on Ava. Doesn't believe that Ava can do it, whereas Father Vincent believes that Ava might have been chosen, like, that she is the one. Like, you gotta let her go. So I like that back and forth between the two of them when they're on screen. And again, you get some really interesting story tidbits and a really, really awesome scene with her and Alba Baptista toward the end of the show where I was like, oh, damn, you go, Mother Superior. Like, I feel for you, man. And, like, you like her. Again, badass. The sisters and the mother in the show, man, they are badass, and I love that stuff. And then finally, we have Cardinal Duretti, who's played the last one that I'll touch on. He's played by Joaquim de Almeida. Um, awesome. Like, you want a cardinal that the minute you see him step on, you're like, you're bad. You're definitely bad. That's what Joaquim de Almeida is good for, man. And he crushes it, man. He just absolutely crushes playing this cardinal. And they hold some of his cards so that by the time when you get them revealed, you're like, oh, that's where we were going with all this. Okay, specifically the story that deals with Doretti, Mother Superior, and Father Vincent. Those three, their story is quite interesting. And then obviously you got the Warrior Nun. So overall, I thought Warrior Nun was a ton of fun. And when the nuns are together and they're doing badass nun shit, I'm all in on this show. Like, I am so excited for season 2 because if we get a season 2, this group is now established. They're working together. What they have going and what they've got to deal with, I think could be very, very interesting. And the show ends in a legitimate cliffhanging way. Like, you're in the middle of something and then something happens and you're like, oh shit, like where do we go from there? And credits. And you're like, what? How can you end there? So I really hope that Netflix rolls the dice and goes to season 2. It seems to be getting fairly good, praise and reviews. People seem to like it. Saying similar things here. When it's doing the Warrior Nun stuff, it's fantastic. When it's not doing that, Alba Baptista better be doing something pretty awesome or interesting. Otherwise, it's a little slow and boring. Some of these episodes feel long, even though they're 40 minutes. Because if it's anything but the nuns together doing Warrior Nun stuff, or Alba Baptista just winning you over with her charm, it dips a little bit. But I think the potential for this show going forward is really, really high. I think it figured out what it needed to be. It got into its groove right at the end of the season. And if we get into season 2, I think this is going to be one of those super fun action shows. Very similar to Wu Assassins, which is another show. A lot more action in Wu Assassins and really, really good choreography because you've got one of the greatest, martial artists in the world with Iko Uwe on that show. But same thing. It falls into that formulaic problem where it's like, oh, we probably had 2 episodes too many. Oh, by the time we get to the end of the season, you're like, I want what's next. And I'm still waiting on season 2 of Wu Assassins. And with the pandemic, we could be waiting a long time. But I think for your money's worth, if you like stuff like Wu Assassins, or you like action shows, if you like comic book material, if you like kind of supernatural sci-fi type stuff, or the idea of just ass-kicking nuns, Warrior Nun is for you. Push through. The beginning is a little tough, but like I said, once you get into it and this thing finds its groove, this show is excellent. It's a lot of fun, and I really look forward to seeing where they go next, and I look forward to seeing what Alba Baptista goes next, because I think watching her in this show, immediate breakout. Like, if I was casting for any number of things, I would be like, let's get Alba, specifically like comic book stuff, man. Like DC, Marvel, one of you two need to get Alba Baptista, find her a good role, and bring her in, man. She just lights up the room when she walks into it. She's so enjoyable, and that's my biggest takeaway, is I think you have a potential breakout lead for other movies or TV shows. I think Alba Baptista could have a really nice future in front of her. I can't wait to see what she does next. I can't wait for season 2 of Warrior Nun. I hope we get it, but that's it, man. That's all I got to say about Warrior Nun, season 1 on Netflix. Now I know what you're thinking, man. General thoughts. You hear Warrior Nun. Are you in? Are you out? Like I said, when I saw it, I just saw the name. I was like, I'm in. That's the type of stuff I totally get behind. So if you did watch it, what'd you think, man? Was it too slow? Did you start watching it and dip out because the beginning is rough? If that happened, jump back in, man, because the back half's so good. If you got through the whole thing, what did you think? Was it solid all the way through? Not for you? Do you just want Warrior Nuns all the time? Anything you're thinking about the show, if you've watched it, goes down below. If you haven't, have I forgot how to say words. Has C-Man enticed you to want to check out the Warrior Nun, man? Take a look at it. Do you think it falls into your zone of things you might want to watch? Anything you're thinking about Warrior Nun goes down below in the comment section. And if you've read the actual novel, the graphic novel, let me know that too, man. What's the graphic novel about? What does it get into? Does it relate to the show at all? Any of those good things, man. All of it goes down below in the comments. I look forward to talking to you, as always, down there. As always, if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you're new, you want to come hang out, show a little love and support to the Seaman, and you haven't yet, jump over there, man. Show the channel some love by hitting that subscribe button. Hit that little bell if you want those alerts. Until next time, for the Seaman Cinema Sit Down, I'm the Seaman. I'm signing off. Peace, y'all. Well, I'll be. You guys are still here. You must be looking for some more content. Well, don't worry. Seaman's got you covered, man. You got videos like this guy and this guy. And if you haven't yet, and you want to come check out all the Seaman goodies, join the Cinema Sit Down squad, man. Hit that subscribe button. And don't forget to hit the little bell down below that, too, so you can get alerts every time I make new videos.